yours. Can you please introduce yourself and proceed with your speech?
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the audience from all the parts of the world under SDGs influence. My name is Renato Siminelli, and I'm a SDGs member in Brazil. Again, thanks for the presence and support of the audience in the discussion. It is a pleasure to be sharing this subject with you all. Since 2018, as a member of SDGs, the Instituto Quadrilátero, the management system of Geoparque Quadrilátero Ferrífero in Brazil, under UNESCO, had been organizing initiatives, webinars, international and local meetings to promote the 17 SDGs as development anchors to mining systems. Other segments of high territorial influence or impact under the same principles are energy, agriculture, forestry, among others. The growth of ESG practices and strategies in many important segments, as that SDGs and ESG practice parameters and indicators be compatible, aligned, or bridged. Although today ESG is strategically restricted to internal industrial operations, the future is for both to be managed, integrated, or overlapped. Thank you very much, and I wish a great event today. Please, Herbert.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Herbert Ramos. I'm working in G821 Group. I am CEO at G821 ESG Analytics. G821 is a 4 companies group, which are G821 Mineral Consulting, G821 Virtual Reality, G821 Geotechnology, and G821 ESG Analytics. I hope we can share good information and opportunities to work. Christian?
Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Freitas. I work at G21 Group as a special GIS, and I will show you today some cases that we work for the state of São Paulo. Can I begin the cases?
Sure, Christian. Go ahead.
You want to introduce something, Albert?
Yes. I would like to share my screen here. One moment, please. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. We are going to talk about bridging SDGs and ESGs throughout the geospatial insights. We divide the presentation in 4 parts: who we are, our approach about ESG, some cases, and the ESGs as a competitive advantage. As I said, G21 is a 4 companies group, and the group has a multidisciplinary team with over than 40 years experience in consultants, engineering, geoscience, in geotechnologies. At G21 Geoanalytics, ESG Analytics, we seek to make our client investment more efficient and sustainable through the geotechnology and geoscience. Okay, but what is ESG? Just over. It's okay. Well, ESG can be summarized as practice to describe the quality of company's social, environmental, and governance performance. The term was used for the first time in 2004 by the United Nations and the World Bank in a report called Request Wins, initially as a provocation to the financial market. Since then, the market in general has been consolidating the view of acting in accordance with ESG standards, increase the competitiveness. According with this view, ESG data-driven approach is essential to support the decision-making. Analysis and planning need to consider the specificity of the territory. Geospatial data must be integrated to ESG and observational data to generate insights about assets, projects, companies, and geographic areas. In a nutshell, risks are in the intersection among project data, environmental data, and social data. Well, there are several standards to guide ESG's implementation, such as GRI, SASB, TSM, and so on. Most of them start with the materiality. We've consisted in identifying and prioritizing material issues to stakeholders and not just to shareholders, and to address SDGs targets. And here we have one possible bridge. We can consider 3 basic steps to incorporate or to improve ESG practices: defining materiality, planning goals, actions, and investments, monitoring and report results. So a data-driven ESG approach in a ESG data-driven approach, materiality plans and report must be based on data. That means it is required data infrastructure designed to connect to public and proprietary data sources, store different data formats, allow effective monitoring and reporting. The data sets include satellite images, observational data, mapping, documents and reporting, data stream like video, 3D data, social network data, and so on. G21 Geotechnology has already developed several geospatial data and data science projects, some of them to support ESG implementation and to address ESG SDG targets. Now, Christian will present you some example of these projects. Christian, do you want to share your screen, or you can use this my screen?
I will share my screen.
Okay.
Everybody can see?
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. So let's go to the cases. We have 2 cases to present to you today. The first case, it's about ecological economic zoning of the state of São Paulo. We call it ZEE for short. And the second case is for resilient São Paulo municipalities. It's a project focus on climate change and how can the local government can face the consequences of climate change. And the second case is more focused on actions, measures, projects. And the ZE, or the zoning, ecological economic zoning of São Paulo, it's more like a policy, but we're gonna get a little bit into the cases. Just to have a little context, the zoning, the instrument of zoning, it's defined by law in Brazil. For those who are not here in Brazil, it's defined by a federal law. In 1981, the law created the instrument, this policy, and in 2002, the policy was regulated by a decree. In the decree, it has two main points, the ecological sustainability and the social economy. Inside the social economy, there are concepts of economic growth, and I already make some correlations with the SDGs because it's important to know the concept, the initial concept of the zoning already gathered this kind of concept. In the case of ecological sustainability, you can talk about the goals 6, 14, and 16. And in the case of social economy, we're talking about economic growth, protection of natural resources, favor presenting the future generation, recognition of the intrinsic value of biodiversity. All this comes from the decree in 2002, a federal decree. For any states in Brazil to create their own zoning, they have to establish their own laws. In São Paulo, in 2002, they made this decree and then creating the instrument of ZE. And when they were created, they specify some guidelines to focus to the actions that will take on this project. The guidelines was resilience to climate change, water protection, biodiversity protection, competitive already.
Okay.
They already mentioned the connection between the instrument, this policy instrument, with ESG and SDGs. They already sit in the documentation. These strategic guidelines have been used as a thematic focus on the preparation of ZE, and in general are connected with the main world agendas focused on sustainability, adaptation to climate change, implementation of the 2030 agenda. So they call it SDGs and ESG as instruments to correlate with the actions that would take place in this policy, in this instrument they will create. So they came with this challenge to create this ZE with all these ambitious goals, and GE21 was called to help them, the state of São Paulo, to achieve the goals of this project. The project have three main steps. It have a diagnosis step, has a prediction step, and an implementation step. In the diagnosis, they work gathering, integrating various maps and reports. All this data have to be integrated to be analyzed. And with this analysis, they can make predictions, create scenarios and projections to climate change. It's a very important part of the discussion. In the end, you can make, with all this information, we make the zoning of state of São Paulo. It's important to highlight that the zoning is not a simple byproduct of the overlay of information. It's a discussion. It's the product of analysis of the specialists. So it's not about pure geoprocessing. It's about discussion also, and mainly about discussion and coming to an agreement between these specialists. To achieve these steps and the goals of these steps, GE21 proposed for the state of São Paulo, especially for the Secretary of Infrastructure and Environment, the creation of a SDI. The SDI would be an interesting tool to achieve this component, because it can help all these steps. In the end, you can discuss and create the zoning that will be favor the goals that they established in the beginning of the project. So for the first step, we understand that organization that organize the information and give easy access is very important, because we have a vast amount of information spread to multiple institutions. Some information was created by the specialists on self. So we have a place to put this information, integrate this information, and document this information. The SDI is important. The infrastructure is important because it has the concept of metadata. So we're creating a system to organize the metadata. We can achieve the organizational information for people to consult, for people to start to elaborate this analysis that come from a necessity of understanding what's happened and make the diagnosis of environmental and economic of São Paulo, state of São Paulo. We create, in the end, I will show some numbers so you can see how many information, how many layers we gather in this metadata system. Also, we have the second step, the step that focuses on creating scenarios and climate projections. The main source of information for climate change and climate scenarios came from a specific project named Projeta. The information was distributed on internet, but in a raw format. So it's very difficult to use immediately in any GIS software. So what we did to gather this information in this project called Projeta, you have many climate variables with scenarios that goes to the year of 2100. In English, it would be to 2100, something like that. It's very far. So it's important to see, at least they establish a limit of 2050, the year, and they will make these projections, these predictions of climate. So one of the main steps of that we did in the project was how to gather this information, this raw information, and transform this information and this data and information to be consumed. We did this using a concept of geographic ETL. ETL became more than a tool. It's a concept of extract and transform data, GIS data mainly. In the case of GIS21, we work with GIS data. We can extract this information from the site, from this project, and we get together in a database, and you create a tool to be used in the GIS softwares, the conventional GIS softwares, to transform and process this information. So the specialists that work at the zoning, they can choose the prediction model, they can choose the climate variable, and they can choose a time frame. With these three variables, these three parameters, they can create many maps. In the case of ZE, they ended up creating almost 100 map layers to be used to discuss the climate change in the state of São Paulo. It's a very interesting, the source of the information, it's a very vast, very interesting, and the creation of a system that can extract this information and transform this information was also very interested from the GIS point of view. We are very proud that we can make this happen for the specialists to use this information and discuss the analysis with these specialists. All this information was transformed in maps and show to be used and discussed with people. People from the government, people from the society. This is it's important to highlight that the ZE is not a discussion only for the specialists. At some point, all the decision have to be that has to come to agreement with the civil society. In the end, to accomplish the third and last step, we have to integrate all this information, all this analysis in an environment, in a system, and we choose not only a WebGIS, but a system that can create many contexts of visualization. We are not talking about only maps. We're talking about maps and dashboards. So from the metadata, we can gather this information and construct some context. Every box that you see in the screen, it's a context, a thematic context, in which the specialist will discuss something about climate change, something about water protection, about biodiversity, about inequalities. All this environment, all these WebGIS, all these dashboards were created by the specialists using the information that we gathered and documented in the metadata. These maps was offered to the specialists. They organize every context according to the objective, to the goals that they have to discuss. They can overlay this information, analyze this information, overlap all this information, and not only maps, but dashboards and maps. It can work with this kind of modern tools. Today, they are very common, but at the time, they are very restrict the type of information we have to work, all working and international standards, which is sometimes very difficult to find the right tools to do this. So we have many information that we gather. In the end, it was very interesting because the SDI in itself can accomplish or become an instrument to achieve a goal of SDG. In the case we're discussing about the goal number 9, especially in the access to information and communication technology. So this infrastructure that we create to help the specialists of state of São Paulo to define the zoning, the economic and ecological zoning of the state, the instrument that we create on itself, it became an objective to achieve an SDG goal, to give access to information. All this platform, all this SDI, it's free to be accessible to anyone that get interested and dive into all this information. In the end, the ZE gathered more than 2,000 layers of information, all documented with metadata, organized in more than 160 maps and dashboards. The information was vast and very diverse kind of information. This was the case of the ZE. The second case, it's more specific about the climate change, to help the local government, the municipalities, to face climate change in the state of São Paulo. It was choose 13 local governments in one region, littoral region of São Paulo, to work with this project. The project has a main goal. It represents the opportunity to discuss and propose policies and actions related to adaptation and climate resilience based on sharing experience, information, and good practices. In the case of ZE, we talk more about policy, structured and defined policies. In the case of PMPR, for short, is the nickname of this project. It's more about actions measured or projects, list of projects that the local government have to make to face the climate change. If you're gonna look at this project, specific project, from the SDG perspective, in all its documentation, they already mentioned the objectives, the goals 5, 11, 13, and 17 of the SDG. And from the SDGs, from the ESGs, sorry, from the ESG perspective, it's very important for them to achieve good governance, to look at financial resource. All the solutions, all the proposed measures has to be sustainable from the financial point of view. This is very important because we're dealing with government, local governments, but they have to be very careful about the how much they could spend in this kind of solution. They have to look for the ecosystem services. It's a new concept to tackle the problems, but understand that the problems is complex and deal with many aspects. So we have to deal with the ecosystem services and instruments for warning and response. So we have to create some kind of practice or practices that local government can use to help to prevent any problems on consequences of climate change. It's a very important, specifically in the state of São Paulo in these last years. Again, the goal of the project itself is to encourage municipalities in the state of São Paulo to organize and use data and information collected in project and the state plans as a useful tool for planning local measures to adapt to climate change. The focus of the project. We gather the local government representatives and make them create some measures, some projects, sustainable projects to avoid, to prevent, to correct problems in consequences of climate change. So GE21, because we have this experience with STI in São Paulo, we are called to help them to achieve these goals. We propose the use of the GIS tools that is compatible with the STI, because we have to gather many information, not only because this information is important to define the projects, but because of the diagnosis that some local governments have deficiency in define and create their own diagnosis. So we have to gather this information. We have proposed the use of GIS tools that is compatible with the STI. A GIS tool that is capable of connect and analyze data coming from geoservices. This is very specific because they are not producing information, they are gathered information. To work with information that belongs to other institutions, we have to deliver a tool that is capable of collecting this information and analyze all this information. And in the end, they have to discuss and create the solution for these problems. So we create a GIS tool that allows co-creation. For that, we work with the concept of geodesign. It's a framework. Some of you may are familiar with this concept that help people create together information based on geographic data to gather solutions that will be accepted by the majority of people. So we create this tool. We delivered for him this kind of tool to work with the problem. Again, this ambient, this view tool can create many contexts of visualization, not only maps, but dashboards also. Each local government has its own environment, has its own ambient, his own context to view the information of his local information. They create and organize this information. They did this. It's not us that create and organize. They made this. We teach them to organize this information. Inside this view context, they create the information, organize the information according to some criteria. Information were organized according to adaptability. Let's remember, we are always talking about climate change. So the information was organized about adaptability, sensitivity, exposure, risk, and of course, climate. In each context, gather more than 100 data layers, map layers, so the specialists can work through and analyze what's happening in their own region, what's going on and what's going to happen with the climate change. Inside this context, they are capable of connected to any SDI available in Brazil specifically. They can connect this information in any format, bring more information to the table to discuss the solutions and to define or create a landscape of what is happening in the region, and then they can pass to define the solution. To go to the solution phase, we work with the geodesign. We teach them to work with this concept of geodesign. Just to give a little bit of context, geodesign is a construction, a planning method in which the creation of a proposal and impact of simulation informed by the geographic context are strongly linked. Or what we are trying to say here is the people will create the solutions, create the measures, the actions, the projects in this region, and they have to, in the process of creating the solutions, they have to understand what impact these solutions have to do with this local environment. So it's very important to make these solutions understanding what is happening to the local environment and, of course, to the climate change process. So this tool is important because we highlight the focus of the goal of the project. It's the useful tool for planning. Geodesign was an important part of the solution because it is a tool for planning in local measure. It's important for the representative of the local government to understand that they have available this kind of tool and information to work with. So we teach them. In the time we are going through the pandemic, so we can't do presence meeting, so we have to do everything full online, 100% online. So we have to teach them to use and create this context of visualization and how to use geodesign to understand the information and work, define the solutions. We did this many meetings, online meetings with very many important local governments and state governments, representatives of local government and state government. In the end, we presented this tool in which the local government can, inside this visualization context, this context of visualization, create the solutions. The solutions that have to be spatial, it has to be located in the space, in the geographic space, because once they define what kind of measure, what kind of actions or solutions or projects they want to go for it, we have to analyze this project with some kind of metrics to define the impact or risk of these projects don't be sustainable. In this screen that you see now, the people define, they draw the solution, and in real time we can establish what positive impact this solution can have. In this example, I give you the SDGs goals. So in this particular case, we are measuring the positive impact of the solutions, this specific solution in the SDG goals, in positive impact and negative impact. With this, we can, after discussed all the solutions, proposed solutions, and from the list, in the end, we have a list of projects, of measures, of actions that people will choose, those whose projects will be approved, whose projects will be disapproved by all the collective of specialists and defined in this spatial context. So it was very interesting because it can already make geodesign work in some practical terms. It's very interesting to see the tools helping the local government created this instrument to help them to get a list of projects that can be choose to be put in execution in short term. It's well, both cases, the ZE, the zoning cases, and the resilience case of local government, what's very interesting because make us not only use GIS data, but to create GIS tools that can work with this data and get into practical terms in finding the solutions. I hope I could be clear. You can discuss later. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Christian, thank you. Just to conclude the presentation, find here. One moment, please. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Just to concluding, as you know, ESG, SDGs and ESG is about sustainability in overall, but it also about creating and protecting value to the companies. In short term, SDGs and ESG improve operational efficiency, enables capital access, reduce risk of regulatory sanction, and helps obtain and maintain the social license to companies. And the middle term and mid and long term, it increases competitiveness, revenue, innovation, governance, and reputation in brand value. Well, it was our presentation. Geospatial and specialists help companies. Supported by geotechnology, Geospatial and specialists help companies to implement and report ESG best practices and address the SDGs targets, which communicates environment and social responsibility, solid governance, reduce costs, increase profitability, improve reputation, and resilience. Thank you very much, and we are available to discuss in the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Renato, for your presentations. It looks like we already have a lot of questions in the chat. So what I'll do is I'll quickly just go through my slides and then we'll open it up for Q&A and discussion where the participants can raise their hand and mute themselves or use the chat function to ask any questions that they have of any of the presenters that we heard from today. So once again, I'm Miriam Rabi. I'm with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. So you heard a little bit about SDSN from Renato. Let me go ahead. I forgot to share my screen. I can start with a very brief introduction to our organization. So SDSN was launched in 2012 under the auspices of the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. And the mission of our organization is to support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Agreement at local, national, and global levels. We are a global network of knowledge institutions that are working on the SDGs currently, and I'm sure this number is probably not the most up to date, but the last time I checked, we have about 1,800 member institutions, where about 80% of them are academic and research institutions, all doing incredible work on the SDGs. So we have a lot of geographic networks that are established. So as you heard, Renato is leading SDSN Brazil. We have active national and regional networks all around the world where academics, NGOs, CSOs are all working on different aspects related to the Sustainable Development Goals. We've already heard from Christian and Norbert about the SDGs. And I think everyone's already familiar with them, so I don't think I need to go into too much detail or provide an introduction, but just to kind of set the scene for the work that we do at SDSN, we have a set of 17 goals, 169 indicators, and 169 targets and 231 indicators that help member states to measure and monitor progress against each of these goals. So similar to some of the work that Christian and Herbert mentioned in terms of addressing environmental, social, and economic issues, those are kind of the same three core principles of the Sustainable Development Goals. And they cover a wide range of issues, as you can see: poverty, hunger, access to clean energy, climate and environmental issues. And a lot of the indicators and targets are trying to measure access to services, or we have to understand population movements in order to measure some of the indicators for the SDGs. So that's where geospatial information and technologies come into play and play a very important role in monitoring, implementing, and achieving the SDGs. So we already heard from Herbert and Christian a few examples of how they're using GIS and geospatial information and different tools to support ESG principles. So today I'm going to provide a little bit of information on how we use different geospatial sources and tools for the work that we do at SDSN. So as I mentioned, SDSN on the one hand is a global network of member institutions that are all doing incredible work related to the SDGs. But within our secretariat, we also have thematic networks that focus on different angles and aspects related to the implementation or monitoring of the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm leading the geospatial arm of SDSN, so one of those thematic networks within the secretariat, and our focus is on advancing the use and production of timely and geospatial data and technologies for the Sustainable Development Goals. This program was launched about 3 years ago now in partnership with Esri and National Geographic. And over the past 3 years, our work has kind of evolved into 3 core priorities. So the first one is data curation, production, and visualization. So for this work stream, what we do is we work with a lot of different teams from different sectors all around the world that are doing innovative work using non-traditional data sources to measure and monitor issues related to the SDGs. So we work very closely with the teams. We have a set of criteria that we use to kind of review and evaluate the data against. And if it meets our criteria, we work with the data providers and these teams to basically package the data in a way that would be accessible to a wider SDG community. So whether you're a policymaker with very limited time or a researcher that's interested in doing further analysis or a journalist who's curious to, know what the state of some of the SDGs are, as it is, in the past hour or in the past day. This is kind of a space we've created where we feature a lot of those data sets. We'll go through a couple examples together. We provide all the metadata, all the underlying geospatial layers, the original data sets. So it's a repository of data layers and information that those who are concerned with the SDGs can use for their own work as well. So the second work stream kind of evolved because we realized that dashboards are a great tool. It's a great way to kind of understand what the data set is trying to communicate. But at the same time, some audiences want to better understand what kind of impact that data has. Why is it important to collect that data? What impact is it having, on their community or in their society? And so story maps and storytelling kind of allows us to create a narrative that further contextualizes the data. It allows us to feature use cases, different research projects, the way different tools and applications are being used among a community or a company. And so it's a way to further contextualize the data and also add more multimedia content. So it's not just the data that you're interacting with. A lot of times, companies or organizations or a research team, they have a story to tell about, why the data was produced or how it was produced and the impact that it's having. So it allows them to embed videos, add other kinds of multimedia content. So it's become a really great tool, even for us internally, to use for a lot of our reporting as well. And then the third core priority is focused on education and capacity development. So the president of our organization, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, he's very keen on kind of mainstreaming GIS and increasing awareness about geospatial information and technologies among different user groups and different age groups. And so we have a wide range of different programs and activities that hopefully are supporting different SDG communities with better understanding some of the tools and data sets that we have available on our website and other platforms as well, so that they can integrate kind of a geospatial lens into the work that they're doing related to the SDGs. So this is just kind of a snapshot of some of the maps and dashboards that we have on our platform. We have about 50 plus data partnerships. So I'll show you a couple of examples and you'll see what the page looks like and where you can find all the information. This is just kind of a snapshot of different kinds of categories of story maps that we feature on our platform. So I'll show you a couple examples of how countries are using story maps to report on their SDGs. We also, as I mentioned, kind of use the story map tool to feature different technologies that have been developed. So, for example, we have one story map from the American University of Beirut, where they've developed a map that supports farmers with smart irrigation. So it kind of is an intro to the app, but it's also provides some context on how it's being used. And then we also use the story map tool for different use cases, research projects, data initiatives, and different activities. We'll feature, I'll show you a few examples from Brazil later throughout the presentation. Oops. And then, as I mentioned, the third kind of core priority is focused on education and capacity development. So one of our most popular programs is our annual summer GIS program for middle school and high school students, which we just concluded, I believe, last week. So it's a 10-week program. It's free and virtual and open to students from anywhere. And we usually provide lessons, basic training on GIS, lessons on the SDGs, and also on digital storytelling. We have guest speakers from different sectors, talk to students about different topics related to the SDGs this summer. The program was focused on COP28 and a lot of different climate challenges. And throughout the summer, the students choose a topic, usually kind of a sustainability challenge that they're facing in their own communities, and they use the skills and the knowledge from this program to develop a solution or to do a research project, and they present their final project in a story map format. So we're currently reviewing the submissions, and we'll be promoting and sharing the results in the next couple of months. So we usually host this program every summer. And then we have engaged in other activities. So we worked with a couple of different academic institutions that are also SDSN members, like SDSN Brazil, to help them integrate GIS into the research projects that they were doing. So we provided some training, kind of went through a little bit of planning and design with them, and they all did a really wonderful job in kind of using GIS for different research projects that they each were undertaking. We have all of these available on our website. I'll share a link in the chat after I'm done, so you can take a look at the incredible work that they've done. And we also create different lessons or tutorials or step-by-step guides that can help you kind of get started with ArcGIS, or if you're a little bit more advanced, to learn how to use some of the different amazing tools that they have. So we have a series of video tutorials on just, basic kind of ArcGIS lessons that you could follow through, or we have guides on how to use ArcGIS image to monitor vegetation change over time. So depending on kind of where you're at in your ArcGIS journey, we have material that can hopefully support you. These are just highlights of a couple of different collaborations and partnerships we have. So we do connect with different geospatial centers and programs across different universities. So if we have anyone in the audience that we haven't connected with yet, we'd be happy to explore synergies with you. We also collaborate with a lot of different international initiatives that are also doing work on Earth observations and GIS. And we also engage with teams that are kind of trying to promote data-driven narratives around the SDGs and advocate for the use of data. And so some of our data sets have been featured in some of those global campaigns. This is just some of our contact information and where we kind of make announcements and promote some of the different resources that we have available on our website. So feel free to follow us if you'd like to stay tuned on different updates and developments. I see that we don't have a lot of time left. So maybe what I'll do is, as we kind of open it up for Q&A, I can just show some examples of the data sets and story maps in the background. So that will be kind of the visual background and scene for you to explore, but I do want to leave room for a Q&A and discussion. So we do have about 20 minutes left. So perhaps we can get started with some of the questions, and I'll just share some links in the chat and show some of the visuals in the background. Great. So I do see that there are some questions in the chat For those who've already added them, would you like to unmute yourselves and ask the question? Or should we just go through the chat? Let's see.
Hi, Mariam. I'm happy to do this. I'm Irini Gallo. I added
Sure.
2 questions, actually. So I
Sure.
can start with the one for Christian, maybe. It's actually 2 questions. I'm a teaching fellow here in Strathclyde University in Glasgow, and we are actually leading the Scottish SDSN subgroup of the UK bigger regional group. And I was really impressed by the work. Congratulations, and would really like to learn more about the collaboration with the local authority and the framing of this work. So my question was about how was it instigated by the local government, or was it something that you suggested to them? Because there needs to be, I guess, some level of understanding of GIS tools as a baseline for this communication. So I'm really keen to understand more. And the second sub-question was about if you have any publications on the criteria for adaptability, sensitivity that you showed, because there seems to be a lot of decisions there in terms of structuring the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I answer, Jean, already? I hope I say your name right, Irini. In the context of the project, it is a state initiative. It's a cooperation between the state of São Paulo with the German Cooperation Agents for Sustainable Development. So the short name for the agency GIZ. I don't know in English how it will be named, but they have many initiatives in Brazil. They produce many data, many information about climate change specifically. So the main goal of this project, the Resilience Project, is so the local government, local authorities can make use of this vast information they produce along many years for many projects. So it is a state initiative to gather the local government to make them part of the process of the getting to a solution. When they choose the representatives to the local government, it was specify that it's important that some of these representatives have some knowledge of GIS, but not all. Not all representatives have this information. The project was not from all the states. They choose some local governments, some municipalities. São Paulo has more than 600 municipalities. They choose only 13. It's a prototype, let's say. So if you ask for a criteria, since it's a prototype, they go for the projects to see if this kind of methodology will work with this local government. So they don't came with a specific of criteria or of directives. They try to make a project to see what will work and gather these local governments to work together. The project is a continual project. They don't end in a time frame. They can work as long as the states allow. The structure that we create, it's online, so they're gonna pick municipalities and incorporate to the project and try to work with this information. So they don't have any publications specifically to the criteria for sustainability, because it came from the data. What kind of data people can understand or can comprehend to use in this kind of solution. It's more than a project to get to the solution on itself. It's more maybe some kind of school to help the local government how to create solution using GIS information, using GIS tools, and gather all these SDG goals, ESG goals, and how can incorporate all this concept and create the solution. So it's more than more an apprenticeship project than a final project. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, it was very comprehensive.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or add your question to the chat. I see there are some questions about accessing the platforms. So, and I think my colleague has shared the links to some of our websites, but if you need more information, let us know. I'm trying to look through the chat to see if I've missed any questions. Yes, so the 10-week course, if you go to the SDGs Today website, under the education tab, you'll see there's a page dedicated, so you can find all the material and recordings from previous years. We still haven't uploaded this year's recordings or material yet. We'll probably do that in the next month or so. But you'll find a lot of information about the program on that page. Great, thanks, Anela, for sharing that in the chat. Let's see. There's a question about events in Europe. SDSN, if you go to the SDSN website that my colleague has shared in the chat, we usually do have announcements of all of our upcoming events on the platform. So a lot of them are virtual, and for the in-person ones, you can kind of see if there are any in Europe that are listed on the platform. Great. Yeah, for each of the other teams that presented, I think we all use our platforms and social media channels to promote any events. So keep an eye out for any that might be happening in person in Renato, do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Question. The first one, what would be your system approach to updating past and recent events? Okay, and future previews, because we understand that this changes all the time. Okay, how this would be inserted in your system. And second, are the private sector appreciating this geospatial approach to eventually develop project that would be of interest of a group of companies, because this is public data available. And all these companies will need those, let's say, interprets for ESG and SDG, let's say, joint development. Are they starting to, let's say, look for a way to make it more economical and eventually contract it together? That's it.
Thank you, Renato. Those are two great questions. I don't know if they were directed at me or maybe both teams, but I can give it a shot and then hand it over to my colleagues from G21 to respond to that. So regarding the first question, as you said, it's a space in an environment where there's a lot of rapid change, and so it's kind of an ongoing discussion internally among our team and with a lot of our data partners just to keep up with a lot of the developments. And in terms of how we kind of continue that discussion with our audience. So Renato, as you are aware, we've had these webinar series where once a month we try to connect with a lot of our different users just to kind of update them on what we're doing and to also learn from them about the work that they're doing so that we can explore opportunities to collaborate and just explore synergies and learn from the work that everyone's doing within this space. So that's kind of been our effort, or using different international events to connect with others within this space to learn about what they're doing as well. In terms of the private sector, so in the context of the work that we do, so Esri is a major partner in a lot of the work that we do. They've made a lot of efforts to engage other kind of private sector entities within this space, but also for them to connect with the nonprofit space as well, and to create opportunities for them to collaborate and contribute, particularly in the SDG space. There's also efforts within UNGGIM, which is the UN Committee on Global Geospatial Information Management. There is a subgroup on that's called the Private Sector Network. And so they I haven't been as active in that group, but I know that they are making efforts to try to make that connection within the geospatial space in particular. So there are efforts that are being made, and I think there's a lot more we can do, at least with public-private partnerships in the context of the SDG work that we're doing, but still a long way to go. But I think that we've definitely have made some progress over the years, and the SDGs have mobilized some of these efforts.
Thank you.
Charles, Christian, Herbert. Sorry, go.
For sure. In this case of São Paulo State, the main goal is to provide a dynamic tool to have a zoning up to date with climate change, up to date with water and other questions related to SDGs. So it's a very dynamic tool to maintain this live on discussion.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments from the audience? We'd be happy to hear about the work that you're doing if you'd like to share any work that you might be leading within this space of ESG, SDGs, geospatial information and technologies. We also, I think we've shared, or maybe we can share our contact information in the chat for anyone who would like to follow up with any questions or comments or requests. Great. Yes, feel free to share your work in the chat as well. We'll be saving the chat and we'll review all of the links and information that you've all shared with us. Great. Perfect. We have, I think my colleagues have shared the link to our website, and we have our contact information available on the website if you'd like to reach out via email. Arba, thank you for sharing your email. If we don't have any other questions or comments, I think we can close the session and stay in touch via email. And we've been talking about maybe future events or turning this into a webinar series. So stay tuned. We might have other events coming up in the future. Is anyone working on using GIS to track trees for carbon credits? I'll answer that before I hand it over to my colleagues. I don't think we have anything on our platform, but happy to share some resources that would be relevant to this work. If you don't mind emailing us, we can share that information with you, but we don't have, as of yet, anything on our platform. Great. Okay, well, once again, thanks to all the speakers for your time and for your presentation today. And we hope to continue the discussion with you and also with our audience and to learn more about what everyone's doing within this space and to explore opportunities to work with each other to advance the SDGs and ESG. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank
day.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.